From Star Trek Nemesis, the Riemann Warbird Scimitar. The personal flagship of the human-born Riemann warlord Shinzon, the Scimitar is a cutting-edge prototype dreadnought which dwarfs and outguns almost every warship in civilized space, boasting an enormous weapons complement of 52 disruptor banks, 27 torpedo launchers, and a Thaleron radiation cannon, as well as not one but 2 layers of regenerative deflector shields. The Warbird possesses a level of firepower far beyond any Romulan vessel that came before it. The ship is even capable of firing its full weapons complement whilst under a perfect cloak, and carries a wing of over 40 Scorpion-class attack flyers within its armoured hull. The might of the Riemann Warbird Scimitar, combined with the tactical brilliance of its veteran captain, results in a truly lethal force, and a serious challenge to any would-be adversary. From the Mass Effect trilogy, the living dreadnought, Sovereign. Vanguard of the extragalactic invaders known as Reapers, Sovereign is a 2-kilometer long, fully sentient, synthetic starship with the resilience and firepower of an entire Alliance battle fleet. Sovereign has existed for millennia beyond counting, and helped perpetuate a cycle of mass harvesting which has rendered millions of galactic civilizations extinct. Armed with an array of beam lasers, tendrils able to shear a dreadnought in two, an advanced point defense grid, swarms of Oculus drone fighters, and a primary cannon so powerful that no known ship has ever survived it, Sovereign is a creature truly worthy of its ancient reputation. Spacedock Patreon supporters were asked to vote on which environment this simulated battle would take place in. After 3 days, the most popular choice was Derelict Armada. The Derelict Armada features a corridor of open space marked at the centre by a large ruined space station. Across the outskirts of the passageway, thick fields of debris and the charred hulls of ancient warships prevent safe passage, and scattered sparsely throughout the area, small clusters of ancient unexploded munitions still pose a risk to passing vessels. Shinzon approaches the battlefield's edge and assesses his situation. A single hostile dreadnought is positioned at the far side of the arena. Its full tactical abilities are unknown, but presumed extensive. Shinzon is a highly experienced military commander, and a veteran of the Dominion War. He's fully aware of his ship's abilities and how best to apply them in any given situation. Given the scale of the battlefield and the position of the enemy ship, he knows that he does not have time to deploy his Thaleron pulse weapon, and that attempting to do so would only leave him exposed to a lethal attack. Deploying his fighters this early would leave them exposed should he decide to cloak later. For the moment, he begins to slowly approach the enemy, cautiously avoiding the natural hazards that present themselves. At the opposite side of the battlefield, Sovereign also assesses his situation. A single vessel less than half his own size is approaching. Sovereign has existed for countless thousands of years, and throughout that time very few vessels have posed a realistic challenge to him or to his fellow Reapers, and he has no reason to believe that this ship will not share their fate. With a less cautious speed than his adversary, Sovereign advances towards the enemy, and as both ships complete their opening moves, they each stand upon either side of the central debris field and the wrecked space station. Shinzon is presented with a choice: to wait and see which path around the debris field his adversary takes and oppose him at the avenue of his choosing, or to select a path of his own now and seize the initiative. It has not escaped Shinzon's attention that his opponent has rushed into battle thus far, assuming their position across the debris field with far greater speed than he had. Shinzon, however, possesses an advantage his opponent lacks. For the moment, he holds position. Sovereign's path to his target is obstructed by a large mass of debris. The creature is nothing if not patient, but he still has no reason to believe his target is a genuine threat. He continues to move at full thrust, this time along the right-hand path, beginning to circumnavigate the station. As the Reaper begins to progress, it gains a partial visual image of its opponent, but before Sovereign can make a full assessment of its likely abilities, the ship's image ripples and pulses briefly, and the vessel is gone. The target ship did not appear to be destroyed or damaged, nor did it appear to leave. It simply vanished, hidden from sight, but perhaps still there. The Reaper begins to extensively scan its surroundings, probing the area with sensors and thermal imaging. No signatures are detected. Under a perfect cloak, the Warbird Scimitar slowly cruises past its monstrous adversary, coming within a few dozen meters of its hull. As they pass, Shinzon orders his crew to perform a full analysis of the ship's likely abilities, gathering whatever data they can. After their passage is complete, the Warbird assumes a position behind the enemy vessel, targets its underside where its armour appears thinner, and prepares to strike. Sovereign's active scans are interrupted as the creature detects a massive energy spike from its aft. Before it can react, the full force of its opponent's weapons begin to strike the Reaper's hull. An onslaught of hundreds of energy blasts, followed closely by dozens of slower moving torpedoes. The Reaper's powerful kinetic barriers and point defense systems do their best to resist the attack, but all kinetic barriers are built to defend against mass accelerator weapons and ballistic projectiles, suffering a serious weakness against radiation and extreme heat, two defining factors of the enemy's plasma torpedoes. With its strafing run complete, the enemy ship pulls away from the Reaper's bow, its cooling weapons ports making its outline briefly visible as it runs. Sovereign sweeps his beam weapons across the ship's shadow as it leaves, scoring a pair of glancing hits before the ship disappears once again. Shinzon pulls his ship away from the enemy as quickly as possible. The glancing hits the Scimitar suffered as she retreated inflicted substantial damage to the vessel's outer layer of shields. Clearly they are weapons of incredible power, but a rapid scan of the enemy vessel reveals the true damage inflicted by Shinzon's attack. The huge ship's defensive shields have been reduced to less than 20% their maximum strength. It seems this damage was largely due to the plasma torpedoes which successfully penetrated the target's point defense grid, a surprising fact given that most deflector shields are highly effective at negating torpedo attacks. Evidently these shield systems are designed differently. Shinzon now knows that another successful torpedo attack will likely strip the enemy of their shields, but his opponent's main guns are clearly extremely powerful. He begins to skirt the area as he plans his next move. Taken completely by surprise and suffering serious shield damage in the attack, Sovereign's confident attitude is eliminated completely. The creature is hyper-intelligent, however, and now he knows what he faces, an enemy who can hide themselves completely from both visual and technological identification, while still maintaining active shields and weapons. The creature calculates that the quickest and easiest way to ascertain his opponent's position would be to sweep as much of the surrounding area as possible with blind weapons fire, in the hope of striking the hidden ship. Sovereign recognizes that his own weapon systems lack the fields of fire necessary to cover a full 360-degree sweep, and so employs a different approach. The creature deploys its complement of Oculus drone fighters and quickly arranges them in a spherical formation around its own mass, their own firing arcs facing outwards across the battlefield in as many directions as possible. The Scimitar's maneuvers are interrupted as the ship is struck by nearly harmless low-yield energy beams. Shinzon quickly realizes that his enemy is blind firing to locate his cloaked ship, but he's unable to avoid the fields of fire. His location now briefly revealed, Shinzon attempts to evade, but the enemy ship pivots its enormous mass around at incredible speed and fires its main gun, striking the Scimitar's center mass at a fraction of the speed of light. A high-intensity stream of molten metal completely strips away both layers of the Scimitar's shields and bleeds through into the hull, partially ablating the external armor and overloading some subsystems, including the cloaking device. The Scimitar is forced out of cloak, and now that his ship is easily targetable by the enemy, Shinzon knows his only hope is to attack head-on, in the hopes of destroying his opponent before he can score another hit. As the enemy ship rapidly draws closer to Sovereign, it launches its own complement of fighters, and in tandem they release a volley of weapons fire which eliminates the remainder of the Reaper's kinetic barriers and the majority of its Oculus drones. The enemy fighter squadrons then enter the firing range of Sovereign's hyper-advanced point defense lasers, and in a short few seconds, every hostile fighter is destroyed or disabled. Sovereign begins to close on his final target, and orders his 3 remaining Oculus drones to abandon their drive housings and breach the enemy's hull. Now at extremely close range, the Scimitar has been boarded by 3 enemy drones, but the ship's massive embarked force of Riemann shock troopers is having little difficulty repelling their attack. The Scimitar's slowing charge is interrupted as the massive creature's huge arms swing to grapple with the unshielded Warbird, striking the ship's portside wing with great force. The wing fractures and breaks beneath the force of the arm, pivoting the entire ship on its axis, as Shinzon brings the Scimitar's nose to bear fire on the enemy vessel. The creature's huge gun port begins to open, preparing to fire, but creating a temporary breach in the dreadnought's thick armour, and in a final effort to survive, Shinzon orders the firing of all the Scimitar's remaining disruptors and torpedoes at point-blank range. The weapon's volley strikes the creature's exposed weak spots with incredible force, first wounding and staggering the beast, before the final few torpedoes power fully through the creature's body, overloading its unstable weapon and blasting its plating apart at the seams. The explosion pushes the battered scimitar away, scorching its hull. When the blast clears, the scimitar is crippled and barely functional, but the mysterious creature lays dead in space. Post-battle analysis. In this battle, Sovereign had a sizable advantage in firepower, and had the scimitar not been equipped with its advanced cloaking device, it would not have been able to weaken its enemy early on, and the battle may have been over far more quickly. Shinzon's experience and tactical expertise led him to treat his enemy with caution and patience, something which proved advantageous in the early stages of the engagement. Shinzon's quick thinking and analysis of the situation also allowed him to notice a window of opportunity when Sovereign opened its gun port, an observation which was directly responsible for his victory and his survival. It should also be noted that Sovereign's kinetic barriers may have been far more effective had they been faced with any other Star Trek weapons system, but the innate weakness to heat and radiation present in all barrier systems, no matter how powerful, afforded a sizable advantage to the Scimitar's plasma torpedoes.